look, I have my own planner, and I say this planner is like having a conversation with yourself all month long. So you can find it in spiral or in hardcover. And then you have the beginning of the month, what would you like to do? The important days. I like to start with the quote of the month, to set the vibe. And then you have your daily trackers, your mood, your to-do list, what you're grateful for, and a space to just write whatever you like. I like to use mine as a writing a letter to myself. And then at the end of the month, you have what can you improve, what you're proud of, and a note to yourself. So you can find these and more at butterflydreams.co. Use first purchase for 15% off. Thank you so much. Go check it out and give me some feedback on it. Hello and welcome to Life with Francy podcast, a place where you will find conversations about mental health, life, business, anything fun. It just depends on the episode or the guest. I hope you enjoy this episode. Now, let's get the show started. On today's episode was thanks to Podmatch, an amazing community for podcast hosts and podcast guests to make an amazing collaborations like this one. You can find tools, resources, and anything in the podcasting world. And on today's episode, I have the pleasure to talk to Birgitta Visser, who is a soul empowerment coach, divine channel, and light language healer, delivering a message from many lights being to aid of humanity in the hope that people will awaken to what life is about. Um, like the ancients, Brigida it has discovered that true power comes not by avoiding our struggles, but by meeting them with courage. So today you're going to have conversations about empowering, manifestation, energy healing, and all kinds of stuff. So let's welcome. Oh my gosh, I should have asked you how to say your name before the
Yeah, you got it right. You
interview.
got it right, Francie.
Thank
You got it
you.
right.
So tell us, what is life with you?
Thank the heavens I asked you what that meant.
Yeah, people get
Gosh,
overwhelmed by that questions, but it's just, what is life to you?
well, life is about living, isn't it? And we don't really live. We allow ourselves to be lived. Something that I had to learn along the way. And I always say my life's been a roller coaster on steroids for half my life. And it's been a wild and wacky adventure. But I chose this. So I've been through a lot of trauma in my life. And I will say this, regardless of the pain and the suffering that we may go through, it's finding that resilience and that courage within and looking at ourselves and reevaluating our lives and knowing that we have the power within us to change our lives. And it's all about taking back our power because, as you know, Francie, we often give our power away and we allow ourselves to be swayed by the opinions of others and judgments of others and what people think of us and how we should live our lives. And, society molds us to live a certain way, but actually, salt society, salt the people, you have to live according to the song and dance of your own heart and soul. And that took me years to figure out, because I've been and regardless of what happened to me, I mean, I was abused as a kid when I was 10, 11 years old, but regardless of what happens in our youth, right? Don't let it define you, define your experiences instead. And it may not have been our fault for whatever happened in our childhood, but we are still responsible when we grow up, when we become adults. We are responsible for our own lives. And we have the capacity, to change. And I think that is just so, so important. So rather than remaining in that victimhood and sinking in that quicksand, right? Get up and do the work because on the other side of that darkness, once you walk through it and have that chat with your inner demons, because they're not your foes, they're actually friends when you sit down with them and you talk to them. And you come out the other side and you'll see that life is a lot better. And I call that alchemy. I love alchemy. It's, the transformation of character where we heal the heaviness, the lead, and we turn that into gold and we become a far more enlightened version of ourselves than, prior to that experience.
Yeah, I can totally relate, and that's from a person that as well has struggled a lot. So I'm interested. Just tell us a little bit about your story.
Yeah, so even after that, I lost my dad at 14, coronary heart disease, and I was already kind of like starving myself quietly. I'm quiet. My mom didn't even know. I was bullied in high school because I'm 5'11", and I was super skinny at the time. And I decided, after school, I wanted to prove myself. And so I rolled into the modeling industry. But even there, I was assaulted because it's very superficial. People sleep around, and that just wasn't me. But I was very naive back then, and I hadn't healed from the hurts. And so even when my stepdad passed away in 2000, I was 25. He died of cancer, and my mom leaned on me, and so I rolled with the wrong crowd and ended up doing drugs for about 3 months and suffered memory loss. And it was just people wanted to see my happy face. That was always the case. Oh, you want to go? Brigitte is always happy, but I was really struggling, and I could never really talk about the death of my stepdad. So I just thought, okay, well, I'll just throw myself off the cliff and sink into the abyss. And so, but I stopped from one day to the next. And even then, I carried so much trauma with me and I just wanted to disappear. And I traveled the world. I did. But I only did the odd modeling gig because they were always like, well, when I was 25, they were saying, oh, you're too old for the industry. And I kept being rejected, 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 and that really took a kicking to my self-worth. And even in relationships, and I was a late bloomer. I met my first boyfriend at 21 and a half. And I mean, gosh, that was yeah, it was very dysfunctional. I rolled, from one dysfunctional relationship into another one. And then in 2008, 2009, I met my ex. He's doing very, very well now, actually. He was from the States. And I bought him a ticket to come to Holland where I was living at the time. I didn't know he was a part-time crack addict, no idea. And my world went whoop, we went kaboom, and chaos ensued. And even though he wanted to get rid of his demons, he wanted to get counseling, but he didn't have a Dutch social. Then he was taken for ransom by the Crips because he stole from them. And long story short, I tried to help him as much as I could, but in the end, I helped the police find him, and he was deported back to the States. And the leader of the Crips, he called me up and he said, "If I ever find you," he's like, "I'm gonna kill you." And he's like, "If I ever find your ex," he's like, I'm gonna make sure you never find him because he'll be dead in a ditch somewhere." Anyhow, this guy is doing time for life now in Holland. And what really shook me to my core, really shook me to my core. And that's when I downed a whole box of ibuprofens and thought to myself, you know, I don't really want to go on like that anymore. But of course, that didn't really do much for me because the next day I woke up and then I thought to myself, yeah, I can't go on like this anymore. And so my mom said, why don't you go see a counselor? And I did. It didn't work for me because the counselor just said to me, Birgitta, you're strong enough, you're going to be fine. And that didn't help me. And so I had to figure out what to do. And I found a Reiki practitioner. And as I always say, she was amazing. She was my saving grace. And I studied about 2 years under her, and I studied many more healing modalities. I was like a real SpongeBob because I just wanted to understand. And yeah, I mean, I always say to people, what works for one person doesn't necessarily have to
Hmm.
work for another. You have to do whatever agrees with your spirit, whatever aligns with you and what works for you. And I studied the emotional freedom technique, became a meditation
Love
teacher,
that.
studied aromatherapy, aroma touch, relaxation therapy, angelic Reiki, Anubis Reiki. I didn't really like Anubis Reiki that much. Yeah, many other healing modalities. And then I thought my life was going to turn out just great, but it didn't. It did. There's still many more experiences to come. But what I did learn over time, and it was actually when I was in St. Pete in 2014 till about 2017, where I met another very dysfunctional character. And he refused to let me go. It was like possessive, dog with a bone.
Mm.
And, I fell into these coping mechanisms of continuously starving myself and just working like crazy because I always had to take care of people that I was in a relationship with. It was like I had to find them jobs. I had to, keep a roof over their heads. And this guy moved from an hour down to two doors down. And he had reckless, he'd lost his mom, fell into depression. I had to help him with his bills. And I was like, but I'm working 7 days a week.
Mhm.
But in actual fact, I needed to look at myself because what we don't always realize, Francie, is that when we are in a relationship, we try and mold the other person to our liking rather than just accepting them as they are. We need to work on ourselves. We can't be saving the whole wide world. We can't be saving these people. They need to walk their own journey because if not, then we stump their growth, but we also stump our own growth when we become our own, well, wrecking ball, so to speak. And that's
Mhm.
exactly what I did. And I couldn't understand because I was like, well, why is everybody so happy? Why can I not just be happy? I do everything for others. And that was precisely the problem.
Yeah.
I needed to work on the relationship with myself. And that is not selfish, right? It's selfless because it's all about self love. You have to nurture the relationship with yourself. You cannot pour from an empty cup. And that's what many of us do. And again, relationships are all about, I mean, many of us that are in relationship, it doesn't matter, romantic, interpersonal, friendships, whatever. Many people trigger us for a reason. And
Man. Yep.
yes, yeah, rather than pointing fingers at, but why did you say that? Why are you doing this? Why? No, ask yourself, hey, why is this person triggering me? What is it that I need to learn from this experience? Yeah, why is this happening for me rather than to me? Yeah, there's always a reason. It's like I always call life this game of cosmic evolution. It's like when you play Mario Brothers or Sonic the Hedgehog, and you jump and you have to get rid of old baddies, and that's the same with our experiences. And so then we get to the end of the level having had these repetitive experiences, and then we understand it and we level up to the next playing field of the game, so to speak, having understood that experience. And yeah, for me, it took me years to figure that out, years to
Yeah.
figure that out.
I
And
had a decade of experiences myself, you know.
yeah,
I'd say like the 20s.
yeah,
Teenagers is like the awakening
mhm.
of you're not an adult yet, but you're understanding adult stuff. And then 20s, hopefully not for everybody, but it's pretty much learning. Sometimes it's learning where you go to college and you have your career and
Oh,
everything
that,
else. And then you have the learning of trauma, coping mechanisms,
yeah.
survival, and all kinds of stuff. Now I'm in my 30s. What do you want to do? Do you want to spend your life how you did your 20s? Or do you want to make it better so you're not struggling like you did in your 20s, in your 40s, you know? So it's just crazy when you look at it that way in different learning stages. And for some, yeah, they have easier lives than others. and for others, it's not the case. But how can we get to that? Because I'm loving your positive energy and all that stuff. So how did you get here?
Well, sometimes it was one step forward and two steps back. Okay.
Yep.
And I really had to learn. Well, what do I do now? It's like I meditate every single day, and you can start out by listening to YouTube, like David J.I., and he's got these wonderful 20-minute meditations, whether it's battling anxiety, your fears, connecting to the universe, putting out intent and manifestation. He's got everything, emotional healing. I love that one, by the way, because it's all about that self love, that gentleness, being compassionate with yourself and forgiving yourself for all that you've been through. It's so, so powerful. So that works. And if you do that every morning and every evening, I'm telling you, your life will start to change because that's a mind shift. That's what it is. It's about shifting our consciousness. And the other thing that I like to do, you do journaling, which I really love. By the way, it's very, very powerful to write things away from you and understanding that, what you're grateful for. Um, and when we write stuff away from us, we look at it differently. We can breathe that sigh of relief. Um, Also, yeah, I can see I channel. So I used to, and I still do. And it always makes me chuckle because it could be from anything. I mean, when I started back in 2016, it was really about my self-healing. And I'm very inquisitive. So I asked the many masters up there, well, why am I here? Well, what's like the key to happiness? How do I resolve this? And their answers would sometimes be like, a Jack the Riddler. Honestly, it's like, yeah, but it's not really what you would want to hear, but it's what you'd need to hear. And anybody can channel, by the way. It's merely that you take a pad and a paper, and you just say to the universe, "I'm open and ready to receive." How I did it, that's how I started and how I was taught. But after that, I just got my pack of cards. I had like a big batch of cards, and sometimes it'd be the Ascended Masters or the Archangels, and I just pick a card and I just ask, "Is there a message that you would like to convey? Can you tell me a little bit about yourself?" And then I would just start writing. Didn't think about it. I just write. And that's it. So anybody can do that. It's like the same as what you do with journaling. This is just channeling. It's just that extra step. And often wouldn't know what I'd written until I read it back. And then there's other things that you can do. For some people, what helps them is grounding themselves. And there's a really powerful exercise where you can ground yourself in the earth, but there's one other very powerful exercise that I love doing. And you really just stand in your power, Francie. A very simple exercise where you kind of like you visualize sitting at the back of your head on a couch. Yeah. And when you sit there, it doesn't matter what it looks like. You can create a room in your head, but you just sit there, and then you go to the base of your spine where your root chakra is, and you just imagine roots coming out or just a beam of light going through all the layers of the earth until it reaches the core of the earth where there's a beautiful, beautiful translucent crystal. Then you wrap the roots around it or that beam of light, and you anchor yourself, and then you go back up to your root chakra, allowing for that energy to go up, and then allow for that energy to go through your whole body and expand into your energy field. And what happens when we do that is that we stand in our power, but we're present within our body, and we're present in this moment rather than thinking about the future or, looking in the rear view mirror to our past. When we are that present, that is when we can create. And that is how we manifest. And when we manifest, and it's very powerful to manifest, we visualize the end result. And when we visualize the end result, yeah, as if we've already got it, then we take the steps in between to get to that point. But when we manifest, many people say, I want to be, I will be. And that's kicking that can down the road. It's like, I am successful. I have this whatever house, and in your head you describe it. And that's how we manifest because we are all energy. We're all alchemists.
I love that. Is there anything else that you would like our listeners to know about you?
Um, Gosh, I mean, I could go on for hours, but I'm not going to do that. No. Um, well, I mean, I have written one book that's out, Becoming Authentically Me. But trust me, I'm also still a work in progress, right? I
Oh
learn stuff
yeah, we
every day.
all are. Yes.
Yes. And it doesn't mean I go through gnarly experiences because I do. I just, it doesn't take me that long to progress and to overcome and to become. Whereas years ago it took me years, but yeah, so that one's out, and that's about transformation. Well, it's about my life and how I've overcome things, and it's infused with many channeled messages from the many masters like Saint Germain, Archangel Michael, other archangels, the Pleiadians, and it talks about life in general and why this awakening is happening, and why so many things have happened over the past years. And so that's my first book. And I talk about the fact that there is no death. I do talk about depression, about mental health and well-being, about addiction. And it's more like a Q&A session with them up there, which is, from a
Mhm.
different perspective. And then I've written a collaboration book, which is out. It became an Amazon bestseller, I think 2 weeks ago. It's called Become Empowered. I've got another one coming out in collaboration in August. And then my second solo book comes out in September, which is about my time in India.
Ooh.
Yep. All about meditation and breath work, which is so important. And it's one thing because many of us breathe till like, our upper chest rather than breathing all the way into our root chakra, so to speak, and breathing back up. They come out up there, they call that shallow breathing. And because we breathe so shallow, we live very much on the surface of our being rather than tapping into the wells of wisdom within.
Hmm. Yeah, and it's funny you mentioning about breathing. I have learned a lot just because of anxiety,
Yeah,
and I only deep breathe when I feel anxiety. So like I have to practice it when I don't feel anxiety because it is a different time of breathing when you're like taking it all in.
yeah,
And but yeah, I only do it when I'm feeling like, oh, okay, panic attack coming over, so I got to change the way that I breathe. But yeah, for the most part, we just go through life, and sometimes like with my friends and stuff like that, it's just like just breathe,
breathe.
just
Yes,
breathe. And
absolutely.
it's
Just
like
breathe.
it, but a different type, deep and rooted. Yeah, I love that. um yeah, something that you're grateful for.
Do you know, I'm always grateful. I'm eternally grateful for the breath of life. If we didn't have the breath of life, how then we wouldn't be alive, would we?
Hmm.
And we get to, and as long as we've been given the breath of life, Francie, we every day we have we've been given new opportunities to make things right or to do something with our lives. Yeah. So that's the one thing I'm very, very grateful for because we never know when our time is up. Yeah. So never live with what ifs.
Oh, I love that. Where can my listeners find you?
They can find me on my website, powersoulhealing.com, on YouTube under Power Soul Healing, and Instagram under Universal Light Warriors.
I love that. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show.
No, thank you so much for having me, Francie.
Thank you for listening to another episode of Life with Francie podcast. Excuse the sunglasses. I forgot to say something at the beginning of the episode. If you're still with us, oh, excuse my sunglasses. Uh, my dog ate my glasses, and now I have some glasses for at least the next few episodes. So bear with me. But you can find my podcast in all major platforms as well as my YouTube channel. You know the drill. Help this girl out. Like and subscribe. And you can follow uh, the links for the guests in the description of the episode. Have a blessed day. Bye bye.